Section: Introduction. In this section, we delve into the realm of policy optimization methods within the context of reinforcement learning. Our primary goal is to identify the best set of parameters that enhance the performance of an agent by maximizing the expected sum of rewards it can accumulate through its interactions within a given environment. When we have the luxury of knowing and being able to differentiate the dynamics of the environment, we can directly calculate the gradient of our performance metric and use this information to improve it through a process known as gradient ascent. However, when the environment's dynamics are a mystery to us, we can train a differentiable model based on the data we collect from interactions. This model predicts future states, and we can improve our predictions and strategies by learning from these predictions, a method that falls under model-based reinforcement learning. This approach isn't new and has evolved significantly with advancements in deep reinforcement learning. Despite its conceptual appeal, especially when combined with deep learning practices, scaling this method has proven challenging, particularly for long sequences of actions. One of the main hurdles we encounter with this approach is the instability of policy gradients over long horizons, even when we use perfectly accurate simulators. This instability is somewhat akin to challenges faced in sequence modeling, which has seen improvements through the development of deep network architectures designed to mitigate such issues. A prime example is the introduction of attention-based models like transformers, which allow for direct gradient propagation over long sequences. Given these advancements, it's natural to wonder if using transformers as world models could address the difficulties faced in model-based policy optimization. Specifically, we're curious if transformers can produce better policy gradients. Our findings, however, reveal a surprising twist. Transformers, when used as world models that consider the full history of states and actions, do not necessarily improve policy optimization. Instead, we find that focusing solely on a sequence of actions results in more stable policy gradients, leading to better policy performance and temporal credit assignment. To circumvent the issue of complex gradient paths that arise when a transformer is conditioned on the full history, we propose a new class of world models, which we refer to as Actions World Models, AWMs. These models are conditioned only on the history of past actions and an initial state, forcing them to generate their own internal dynamics. This approach not only simplifies the gradient paths but also leverages the gradient propagation properties inherent to the neural network architecture of the AWMs, resulting in more stable policy gradients. Our theoretical framework offers a fresh perspective on backpropagation-based policy optimization methods by highlighting the relationship between network architecture and policy gradient updates. For example, we can view backpropagation through unrolled Markovian dynamics as a specific instance of an AWM instantiated with a basic recurrent neural network. This framework opens up new avenues for algorithmic development by encouraging the exploration of how different network architectures can influence policy optimization. Finally, through a series of experiments, we demonstrate the remarkable capabilities of AWMs in policy optimization. We show that in scenarios with chaotic or non-differentiable dynamics, AWMs can outperform even the simulator itself by creating a more favorable optimization landscape. This leads to successful policy optimization through backpropagation, a feat that might not be achievable with the actual underlying model. In tests involving realistic long-horizon tasks, we compare policy optimization using transformer AWMs against other leading model-free and model-based methods, showcasing their superior performance. Section Summary. In this section, we explore policy optimization methods that aim to maximize performance criteria by finding parameters for parameterized policies in reinforcement learning. When environment dynamics are known and differentiable, the objective gradient can be evaluated through automatic differentiation for optimization. However, using transformer world models conditioned solely on a sequence of actions, rather than the full history of states and actions, tends to yield better policy gradients, leading to improved temporal credit assignment and policy performance. Section: Policy Gradient Computation with History World Models. In this section, we discuss how the computation of policy gradients is influenced by the use of history world models, HWMs. When we run an algorithm, the effectiveness of the policy it produces is closely linked to how accurately we can approximate the gradient. This is especially true for tasks that require us to understand the impact of an action taken now on rewards that might be received much later. Essentially, we need to be able to trace the effect of an action through time, which is something that world models, particularly those that can consider a history of states and actions, are designed to help with. One key insight we've found is that the ability of a neural network to learn from actions and their long-term outcomes depends a lot on the structure of the network itself. For example, transformers, a type of neural network, are particularly good at this because they don't require the signal to travel through a long series of steps to understand the relationship between an action and its much later outcome. This doesn't necessarily hold true when we use transformers in the context of model-based reinforcement learning, RL, with AWMs. Even though these models can predict future states based on past information, they haven't been able to fully leverage the transformer architecture's potential for understanding long-term dependencies. In practice, AWMs are used to predict the cumulative reward of a policy by looking at the sequence of states and actions. This is similar to how we might use a simpler, Markovian model, but with the expectation that the transformer structure could offer better insights into long-term effects. However, we've observed that this doesn't always work out as planned. The process of tracing the impact of an action on future states can get complicated by indirect paths through the model, which can introduce errors and reduce the effectiveness of the policy optimization. We've even found that, theoretically, the gradient of a policy can grow exponentially due to these indirect paths, a problem reminiscent of the exploding gradients issue in recurrent neural networks, RNNs. This has been demonstrated in environments like controlling a double pendulum, where neither Markovian models nor AWMs led to successful policies, suggesting that the potential benefits of transformers are lost due to these complex gradient paths. Moving forward, we propose a shift in approach by focusing on actions world models, AWMs. Instead of basing our world model on sequences of states, we condition it solely on actions. This means our model predicts future states based on the initial state and the actions taken, simplifying the gradient paths and directly connecting actions to outcomes. This approach not only aligns with the theoretical underpinnings of deterministic and stochastic environments but also allows us to leverage transformers in a way that could provide high-quality policy gradients. By training an AWM in a manner similar to other models but focusing on actions, we aim to bridge the gap between theory and practice in policy gradient computation and sequence modeling with neural networks. Section Summary. In this section, we explore the importance of long-term credit assignment in policy gradient computation with history world models, HWMs. We find that while transformers are successful in learning long-term dependencies in sequence modeling tasks, they can lead to circuitous gradient paths in policy optimization, hindering performance in challenging control tasks. To address this issue, we introduce actions world models, AWMs, that condition the world model on actions only, eliminating circuitous gradient paths and providing a framework for high-quality policy gradients using transformers. Section. Markovian models are RNN actions world models. In this section, we delve into the intriguing relationship between Markovian models, recurrent neural networks, RNNs, and the computation of policy gradients. It has been previously suggested that the method of calculating policy gradients through a Markovian model closely mirrors the process of backpropagation through an RNN. However, a detailed exploration of this connection has not been presented until now. Through the lens of actions world models, AWMs, we offer a fresh perspective on how RNNs and policy gradients intertwine, shedding light on the interplay between neural network structures, AWMs, and the mechanics of policy gradient computation in Markov decision processes, MDPs. We reveal that the policy gradient derived from a Markovian model is essentially identical to that obtained from an AWM when the latter is configured as an RNN with a specific type of recurrent cell. This insight not only lays a solid foundation for estimating gradients using AWMs but also emphasizes a critical point for further examination: The process of computing policy gradients by differentiating through Markovian models is inherently problematic due to its similarity to an RNN architecture. Moving on to the theoretical properties of actions world models, we've established a direct link between deep sequence modeling and policy gradient computation. Our goal now is to use this connection to describe the long-term behavior of the policy gradient, depending on the neural network architecture chosen for the AWM. We leverage a theorem that applies to any differentiable AWM, showing a worst-case scenario where the policy gradient remains stable as long as the Jacobian of the AWM, with respect to its inputs, i.e., actions, does not explode. This contrasts with other models where stability is not guaranteed. We then explore the behavior of the policy gradient when using different neural network architectures for an AWM. Starting with a simple RNN-based AWM, we find that the policy gradient can potentially explode exponentially fast if a certain condition related to the spectral radius of the network is met. This finding is significant as it allows us to compare gradients from RNN-based AWMs with those from transformer-based AWMs, highlighting the challenges associated with gradient computation in Markovian models. Applying our theorem to a transformer-based AWM, we discover that the norm of the policy gradient has a worst-case polynomial dependency on the horizon, rather than an exponential one. This demonstrates the transformer model's ability to mitigate the issues of circuitous gradient paths, making it a more favorable option for computing policy gradients. In the experimental section, we investigate how backpropagation through AWMs influences the policy optimization process. Unlike state-based models, AWMs do not require modeling state dynamics in a step-by-step manner, allowing for a more direct and efficient mapping from actions to future states. This approach enables AWMs to bypass complex dynamics in the state space, which can be particularly beneficial in environments with non-differentiable dynamics or chaotic behavior. For instance, in a simulated environment where an agent must navigate a block to bounce off a wall towards a goal, AWMs prove capable of accurately predicting the final reward despite the non-differentiable nature of the bounce. Similarly, in a chaotic double pendulum task, transformer-based AWMs demonstrate their ability to produce stable gradients and smooth optimization landscapes, facilitating the discovery of effective policies. In summary, our exploration into actions world models reveals their potential to overcome the limitations of traditional state-based models and Markovian models, offering a promising avenue for enhancing policy optimization in complex environments. Section Summary. In this section, we explore the connection between recurrent neural networks, policy gradients, and actions world models, AWMs. We show that policy gradients computed through Markovian models are equivalent to those computed through AWMs instantiated as recurrent neural networks, shedding light on the ill-behaved nature of policy gradient computation through unrolled Markovian models resembling RNN structures. Additionally, we demonstrate how AWMs can efficiently handle non-differentiable dynamics and chaotic environments, providing smoother policy optimization landscapes compared to state-based world models, especially when using transformer AWMs. Section: Benchmarking credit assignment with AWMs. In this section, we demonstrate that using transformers as action-weighted models, AWMs, can lead to the development of better strategies in scenarios that require planning over a long period. We examine 8 different tasks from the Myriad testbed, which offers continuous Markov decision processes, MDPs, inspired by real-world challenges. These tasks have adjustable horizons, making them ideal for testing an agent's ability to assign credit over time. Unlike other reinforcement learning benchmarks that might focus on simple tasks with short decision-making horizons, Myriad's tasks demand that an agent be capable of understanding the impact of actions over much longer sequences of events. We found that in Myriad, as the length of an episode increases, the need for an agent to effectively assign credit to its actions becomes more critical. This is in stark contrast to benchmarks that might involve basic robotics movements, where the decision-making horizon remains short, no matter how long the episode lasts. For those interested in the finer details of Myriad and the experiments conducted, we've included additional information in the appendix. When we look at the overall results, which are summarized using the interquartile mean, IQM, it's clear from the figures that transformer-based AWMs are uniquely capable of maintaining high performance even as the episode length, and thus the planning horizon, increases. This is not the case for other methods, which tend to falter when the horizon goes beyond 100 steps. Specifically, when employed as AWMs, transformers enable the generation of better policy gradients than what's possible with either standard Markovian models or recurrent neural network, RNN, models. However, it's interesting to note that when transformers are conditioned on states, their advantage in generating long-term policy gradients diminishes, performing no better than Markovian models in this respect. Our findings reinforce the idea that while transformer-based models, RNNs, and Markovian models can all create long paths for policy gradients, this complexity makes it challenging to assign credit effectively over long horizons. We also put our method up against other relevant benchmarks, including the Model-Free Soft Actor Critic, SAC, and the recently popular online decision transformer, Online DT. Not only does our approach with transformer AWMs scale better with the problem horizon, but it also proves to be significantly more sample efficient than these baselines. In the related work section, we touch upon the foundational role of learning policies through differentiation of environment dynamics in early reinforcement learning methods. Various terms have been used to describe estimators for such policy gradients, including pathwise derivatives and value gradients. Our work connects this body of literature with that on sequence modeling using neural networks, emphasizing gradient propagation and architectures that enhance credit assignment. Essentially, our approach can be viewed as a form of gradient-aware model-based reinforcement learning, where we've modified the dynamics model architecture to achieve better policy gradients. Previous studies have explored multi-step models similar to AWMs, analyzing their use as partial models in tree search contexts or training them with a multi-step latent prediction loss. However, these studies rarely demonstrate effectiveness beyond a short range of steps. In contrast, AWMs have shown promising scalability for much longer horizons. Sequence models have also been widely used in reinforcement learning, especially in partially observable MDPs, for maximizing returns with or without world models. Recent works have treated MDPs as sequence modeling challenges in imitation learning or offline reinforcement learning, focusing on return-conditioned models. Some have even used sequence models to adjust rewards in scenarios with sparse rewards. Unlike these approaches, our framework employs an action-only conditioned model to directly enhance long-term policy gradients, naturally facilitating credit assignment through backpropagation rather than relying on reward-shaping heuristics. For a more detailed comparison of these methods to ours, we invite readers to consult the appendix.